we weren't going to sit in the dark room. We just wasn't going to do it. And this is like, the fact that a year later we got the baby and all that. We just feel like people can get strength from this and know that, if it doesn't work out one time, you can keep trying until you get it. It's working. And then also, if we went through pain, if no one learns from it, it's in vain. And that's just really what this is. So, this is Rockie's thing. I'm very proud of her, the strength and the resilience she's shown.
Thank you.
And I love her. And definitely help us through it.
You guys really did made a huge impact.
And 1 out of 8 women go through this problem of infertility. So, this is a very thing I think it's that no one's talking about, and it's needed and happened for a reason.
Yes.
So go ahead.
The trailer is amazing.
Thank you.
And for me, I'm really looking forward to looking at it. With my ex-wife, we went through 3 or 4 rounds of IVF together, unsuccessfully, and ultimately ended up in divorce. So we didn't have a happy ending, but I know, how families and couples are impacted by it. So I think it's very timely. I think, specifically when you think of women of color and the rates at which they experience infertility, I think this right here is so important for people to see, and so important, for the world to see, but also for women and men of color to see. And then another major important piece for me is that a lot of times, people look at it as an issue that affects women, but it's an issue that affects the family and it affects the couple. Absolutely. And the men are as affected on many levels as their partners are. Absolutely. And just kind of being vulnerable enough to share some of that is amazing. The other show, the first show, the episode of the other show, I'm going to give you a little critical feedback on that one. Right. For me, I felt like it's lacking a little bit of a story arc. And so I'm not sure if that's intentional or stylistically intentional. But for me, that particular episode, the arc of the story is kind of a little bit all over the place for me.
Well, it has there's 4 different stories, I guess, in the episode. So the first one is about the loss, and the second one, we are showing the food that goes through the trip, and the third one is about our radio show that we had done out there, and then the fourth one is about Taj Mahal himself. I guess it doesn't really kind of have an arc, or it doesn't even have a story. It's kind of 2 pieces of segment put together, and it's kind of just showing certain things that are happening or happened with us being in horror.
Yeah, it's a cooking show. You don't usually get that much from a cooking show. You're not getting the whole movie in a cooking show.
But I appreciate
specifically about, for me, a through line that brings it all together.
It's more about the food and where the food came from. That's all. That was all it is. And where we were inspired to make that food. That's all it is, really.
Got it.
Yeah. So, Dave, could you guys have had maybe more visuals of you guys eating food in Hawaii? Meaning, like, let it be all the way through about food. And we saw bits and pieces where you guys were inspired by it. That's what you brought it back to. But it looked like, obviously, you guys were on vacation, which is great. But maybe more along the lines of the food, the whole experience with food. Not just hearing it, but seeing the visual of how the food.
Well, it wasn't really more. It was more about the fact that we were healing. So we wanted people to understand that this was the way we healed. So it was, we went on vacation and then we worked, and this is how we got to a great place. So it's really, the food is sort of like, it's not really the main purpose of this particular 4 seasons, or rather 4 shows. It's more, this is how we healed. So it's like when you're shooting a TV show after you just lost a baby a month ago, it ain't going, most people really don't even move after that. So we were like, this was our therapy, and we were more or less showcasing the therapy of it all. You understand what I'm saying? But it's a cooking show. So, it's like when you look at a Rachel Ray, they just cook. There is no storyline. They just cook the food. So, you know, the fact that we were able to add docu-series or documentary to the cooking, it might make it confusing, like, oh shit, I'm not even in a cooking show. I'm in a documentary. But that's the art of it all for us. You know what I mean? It's more like the therapy, to be honest.
And this first episode is the heaviest one of all.
Yeah, and it's heavy. You got to explain everything. A lot went on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But it was...
and the stunt that we took the cook back with us, that too.
It was Damon was like trying to get so the episode, this season is about honestly, it's mostly about mental therapy. Damon was trying to keep me occupied mentally and physically. So when we had got back from Hawaii, we were back in the house that I had lost the baby in. So it's like, what can I do to keep her mind active so that she can transition out of this dark place? And that was get me to do work that would constantly get me waking up and planning ahead. And then the vacation was just highlighted why we were doing this. It was definitely like a whole new experience. I wouldn't have normally done Hawaiian dishes for Health is Wealth because I'm not Hawaiian. I don't have any connection, but just because of the whole having been out there and it made such a big impact on my healing. I was lucky enough to go out there and to just take that time to be out of my trigger zone.
It was more like a recipe on how to get out of a dark place.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, that's really what it is more than anything. So that's more the message than anything at all. Is when you get in the place that you know you're hurt. To me, sitting in that dark place and rehashing it, it doesn't do anything. You know, we all go through things. So this is why we went through it. And this is how we deal with things live in the moment, very transparent.
Right. So
then you think maybe having more.
Well, let's hear something from the women before I start getting into your stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, what the fuck? Move on.
It's not the content. We're not talking about the content. We're talking episodically in terms of how that message gets relayed to the viewer. So episodically, the story that's being told, because you shouldn't have to explain it. It should come through.
Y'all the only one. You're the only one that said that the whole time. No one's ever said that. No one's ever said that.
Be the divergent.
Yeah. I get it, but you know, it's not as easy as it looks. You know, you made a movie. You know what it is. But what I'm saying is, it's more for the women, right? It's more for the perspective of how she felt. So, you know, maybe let some of the women say something instead of attacking my wife. Go ahead, so I get at you.
Go ahead.
Like now, Dennis and all y'all know how to make TV shows all day. Like, come on. All of a sudden, y'all got so much to say. Let's look at your trailer.
Hi, Rockie.
Hi.
This is how we gonna do it, Dane. This is how the men gonna do it.
Demon left.
Right, Dane, you can't leave when it's our time to speak. What is that about?
He's here.
Mallet, check the chat. Mallet, check the chat.
I'm afraid to check the chat.
I was
coming from
Go ahead, Sean. No, that's
Okay,
it,
you're
Mallet.
finished. Like you had your time. So, Rockie, you know, I just want to say for me, I felt it, you know, and I was able to feel because I've also experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, unfortunately, I lost 4 babies, 3 pregnancies. The last one was twins.
Oh.
And it also destroyed my marriage as well. We were just not able to rebuild after that. But mine was secondary infertility, which I never heard of. People still don't talk about it, you know. So I had, you know, a family very early in age. I do have 2 adult children, but when I got married a second time and, you know, I wanted a second family, I was not able to have a second family. And secondary infertility is definitely something that's not discussed. All these career-driven women, they're not getting the proper education that they should be receiving in terms of maybe freezing their eggs or just, you know, additional options that's available to them if they decide to start their families later on in life. So to see your journey and your story, for me, it just brought those feelings to surface. And I'll say to anyone that no matter what, it's just something that never leaves you. It never leaves you. And I love the children that I do have, my adult children, but the 4 babies that I lost will just forever be with me.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to say thank you, because infertility is just something that is not discussed as often as it should be, or the journey and the healing that's necessary as a result of it. And so unfortunately for me, like I said, I learned the hard way and definitely suffered a lot as a result of that ordeal.
Yeah. And I appreciate you telling me that story. It's so personal, and it's so, I mean, thank you for opening up. I can't imagine how it feels, but secondary infertility is something that is really real. And I talked about it, and it's something that I've learned about recently with my doctors and my network of women that I've been becoming close to. And I do say the same thing, like, women are not educated about this thing, about, now we want to put our careers first because we're like, oh, well, we can get pregnant. There's birth control. There's all these things, to help us not get pregnant. And because pregnancy just seems to happen. That's just, you have sex, you have a baby. It's just what happens, right? And that's how it's taught to you. But that's not how it happens. And like, people are like, oh, you're still young, you're able to get pregnant. It doesn't, it's not always the case. And I have these conversations with people. If you have the means to freeze eggs, freeze embryos, do it, because you never know what will happen. If you're focused on your career right now, I say just do it. Maybe if you don't want to have kids right now, I mean, you never know how you're going to feel in the future. And, there are like 10 to 12 states that do offer insurance for these type of things, for egg freezing and certain things like that. So certain insurances will cover it for some people, but 12 out of 50 states is not a lot. And it's not enough for people that are going through this. And if you think about 1 in 8 women have this issue, but there's only less than 2% of babies that are born through IVF. Not that many women have success stories, and some of them, don't have the resources that I've had, or don't get the information that's able out there. And the way you feel as a woman when you're not able to get pregnant makes you feel broken. It makes you feel like you are not woman. Like, what's wrong with me? So what did I do in my life to mess myself up? And and I'm sure yours probably came with you might have had even more kind of it, because you're like, I was able to do this before. What did I do? What happened in the meantime? And I'm so sorry you had to go through that. And you're very blessed to have your grown children. But like, these stories that I'm just hearing for women are heart-wrenching, but we are so strong. Like, everything that we're going through is like, men don't even know.
No.
I know. But,
thank you for that.
Yes. Thank you, Sean, for sharing, your personal journey as well. Rockie and Dane, first I want to say this. There is no critique that can or should come for the way this story is told. Because it is your story. And this is not something that you should worry so much about cinematography and, what should have been said first. It only should happen the way you feel your story is told for this situation. I appreciate you so much, Rockie, for your strength and your bravery, for sharing your story, not just for you, but for so many other people. Like Keisha, I don't know why every time she speaks, there's more and more that we have in common, but I have 2 adult sons as well. And later in life, when I felt like I did a decent job at being a young mother, but I feel like I would have done an even better job at being a mother at another age. And I too had complications. And I feel like there was a lot of self-blame because you go back into the times when you were young. I know for sure I abused my body, not having the information I should have had and making mistakes that you just can't take back, and getting to this point. But what I love so much more about what you're doing, in addition to sharing your story, is giving women a recipe, that whole health piece, taking care of yourself and your body. And I would say spread another arm, like grow another arm to this octopus, and take it even further back for the younger women, right, who are not informed and make a lot of mistakes and endure this abuse on our bodies because we just don't have the information that we should have, right? Absolutely. It's something that most families, especially in our culture, don't even talk about. Like you don't talk about sex. You don't talk about what's the difference between sex and making love. You just don't have those conversations. And we end up making so many mistakes, just ill-informed choices. So thank you. And Dane, in addition, I know it's like you're always hearing about the women, thankful for sharing your story, but Dane, it takes a lot as a man as well. And I don't want to leave tonight without saying that to you. I give you just as much credit because it takes a lot for a man to sit through this story and openly expose your feelings and your emotions as well. That's something that is missing from our culture as well. And we take for granted the impact that it has on a man. We take for granted that while you can't feel internally what we feel, like there's no describing what it feels like to have a live being in your womb that's just no longer there and there's nothing to show for it. There's no describing that feeling. However, in the same breath, I know that there's no describing the feeling of a man who's there to support his woman and wants to protect her and the child and clearly understands his responsibility to do so and finds himself helpless. Like there was nothing that you can do, but you did everything right. And I appreciate you for sharing your vulnerability through this story and showing the process of what it is just to be there, to express your hurt, to express your feelings, your need to heal, but also the responsibility you took in knowing that you were also responsible for helping Rockie heal. So because of the substance of the story, I just don't feel like it should be open for criticism. Your story has to be told the way you feel it.
Thank you.
I would just ask that you just do more, especially to speak back to the younger women and the younger men who don't understand the possible things and damage that they're doing to their body that's going to catch up to them later on in life.
Well, and thank you for that.
I wanted to share too just a different perspective, and so I heard Lakeisha and April, and I think I thank them for sharing just as well as you, Rockie. I never had problems with infertility or challenges with infertility. However, I lost my niece a couple of weeks ago. My youngest sister, my dad had 13 children. We don't call each other step or anything. These are my brothers and sisters. We pressured her on Zooms and stuff to have a gender reveal. And she was like, no, I don't think I'm going to do it. I will have a baby shower. And we're like, no, have a gender reveal and going with it, and she went on and did a Zoom and, they had a pink cake and they bursted a balloon in front of us. And 2 days later, she told us the baby's name was Giselle. And then we got the call on April 1st this year that she lost the baby. She was in the hospital with a high temperature and this and this and that. And we were heartbroken. Like, this little life, we were expecting a niece. We knew the name, Giselle. I'm the oldest daughter. They call me Triple OG or whatever. And as educated as we are, we handle so much. I really didn't have the words, Rockie. I talked to her about possibly going to therapy, but your story is still a story of hope because the next time I speak to her, I want to say, have you and your boyfriend considered maybe going away and taking a trip. I never even thought of that, right? So it is, what are those other outlets that you can heal? And how do you help someone as close as your family? Even if that I didn't walk in those shoes, right? But my sister just experienced it. And so sometimes, you know, it's a story of hope. It's a story of insight for us to help somebody else, you know, and to even share, hey, you know, Dame and Rockie have a documentary. You and Jermaine should watch it, you know? So I think that, you know, it will help. We heard, like I said, we heard April's story, we heard Lakeisha's story, and they lived it, but I didn't, but it happened so close to me. And so, you know, I just want to say thank you for sharing too.
And how many brothers and sisters do you have? Or
my dad has 13 children. The youngest one is 1 year old. So
and how many
sisters?
sisters?
It's
How many
like me.
sisters? So it's like, how many sisters in there?
9.
So you're living the statistic.
Yeah, 1 out of 8 women.
So tell me, what's the statistic?
One
One out of 8 women
Oh,
go through infertility.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
your family is a direct statistic.
and this is the hardest hit for her, Rockie. She's almost a baby sister. She's the second to the last baby sister, right? So she's on the younger end of the spectrum. I'm 43. I want to say she's 34 or 35, right? And then we all of the adult girls have kids. And so, you know, we just had a family event last week for my sister. She would not come because she didn't want to be around the babies, right? And so, and you can't force that, right? And so my conversation with her was that these things take time. And some of my other siblings was like, well, she can't stay in the shell forever and she has to come out. But no, you can't dictate, you know, how long somebody is going to go through whatever, you know, whatever came out of the process for them.
Yeah.
So I know that even today, as I'm talking to you now, my sister is still in a dark place, you know?
And this might be
she
something.
doesn't want to be around babies right now.
Yeah.
This might be something that's good for her to watch. Because again, you know, going back, you know, watching your girl go through something like that and knowing that, again, like I did feel helpless. There was nothing I could do to fix it, but make sure she was occupied.
Yeah. And
but I do want people to understand that as a Black man, that it is cool to support your woman. And that women go through so much more than men, that men don't have nothing to complain about. You know what I'm saying? Really, because after watching this, it gave me such a respect for women and how they fight for life. And actually the women that go through this alone, like, you know, we're dealing with women that want a child so bad that they're willing to go through the whole process on their own. And I'm like, we are together, we got help, and we're exhausted all the time. And women do this regardless on their own. So that's why I look at women like superheroes. I'd be like, yo, we got the closest thing to creating life is a woman. And that's what God is supposed to be. That's why I be like, God gotta be a woman. You know, and that ruffles a lot of men's feathers. But the purpose of us showcasing this is, yes, so you can understand a path to healing. You know, having a dream, architecting it, putting a discipline on it. And it's easy to tell people to be strong. But we wanted to show y'all what strong or our version of it looks like. Yeah. It's love. You know, and that's the whole purpose of it. Like you said, it really wasn't for the cooking show. It was to say, this is how we got through it. We occupied ourselves by being creative and, you know, just loving each other for a second. Yeah. And doing whatever we removed all the triggers and only dealt with our dreams and made ourselves happy. And it was the time we was like, forget everybody. I don't care. I'm not calling nobody unless I feel like it. It's a time I could be selfish.
I want to tell you, so one thing that Damon did for me, and, you know, Damon suffered some traumatic losses in his life. So he, I think, knew how to take care of me in the moment. He took my phone away. My phone was gone. Deleted all of my baby apps or anything that could like surface to like make me sad. Deleted every like baby present, baby thing in the house. So that when I walked around the house, I didn't constantly just fall into tears. You know, certain flowers or things that reminded me of her, he took those things away and he put them away. So not to like hide what we had gone through, but it wasn't the time for me to deal with that at that moment, because I would see those things and it would flood me with emotions. I would
even,
cry.
Even the records that we were making.
Oh gosh.
So during the records of the Black Guns, and shout outs, we had the name of Baby Dot.
We had the,
third.
you
So
know.
I remember we were in Hawaii and I forgot to take that verse out. It was a bad trigger. Bad trigger. So things trigger you when you're in pain and when you're in those moments, you got to remove those triggers.
Right. And then I always talk about this, but I had the most amazing conversation with the stewardess on my flight. She was telling me a story, and it was the year anniversary for her son's death. Her son died at 21 by a drunk driver. Was a hit and run.
And she was the most laughing, the most
and
fun.
I was so drawn to her on the flight because she was busting his chops the whole time. And I was like, oh, I like this girl so much. And then when I ended up started talking to her, I was like, how can she be this bubbly? And she's known her son for 21 years and he died. And I didn't know my girl for a day. And she can still be this woman. I was like, I have been, and she's this strong, I can be this strong too. And it completely, I don't know, it was just another perspective from someone I didn't know, but it just really made an impact on my life that moment. And the tears kind of dried up and I really was like, I can do this. I had a whole new mind state just from this one conversation with one woman. It was, hope she's out there doing amazing things, but I hope one day she sees this, she runs into it because she really impacted my life.
Malik, check the chat, Malik.
Rockie?
Yes.
I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story. I really enjoyed it. And what I really liked about it, it wasn't just like a testimonial. It was how can you move through this pain? Because sometimes, you see like just testimonials or things, people are experiencing things, but you don't really get this is how I moved through it. This is how I made it to the other side. So that's really what I appreciate most about what you and Dame put together. And in addition to the fact that Dame put his perspective on it too, from a father's perspective, of how you all made it through this. So I really enjoyed it a lot. I mean, like everybody, I lost that baby, like, I don't even, if the pregnancy tests weren't really good, I probably wouldn't even known I had a miscarriage. It was just like maybe 8 weeks, maybe 6 weeks. And even that to me was hurtful and disappointing and saddening. So I can't even imagine being that far along in a pregnancy. My sister did lose a child that far along in a pregnancy. And I was driving a little bit, so I didn't get to see. And she actually, at some point, even though if you have a stillbirth, they induce you and you have to birth the child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't know if that's what you had to go through, but it still always made me sad anytime I think about my sister. I mean, she's going to the hospital to be induced, but she knows at the end there's no child that she's taking home. They're just trying to get the child out of her body because it passed away inside of her. So I just thank you so much for sharing your story, and it'd be a definite resource for people because you just never know. Like when I had that early miscarriage, and you share it with other people, all of a sudden like 500, oh yeah, that happened to me, that happened to me, that happened to me. Nobody really is ever forthright in saying, well, I won't say, because honestly, when you're pregnant, you don't want somebody to come up to you telling you, oh, we had a miscarriage. So it's just good that you have this resource out there for people to really be able to find and see the story when they've gone through it.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. And do you have children now or?
Oh, I have 3 sons.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah,
amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I love it.
I just want to congratulate you guys again. I was just in the chats. And again, everyone's life takes a special path. It's just so great to see that a beautiful child came out of a loving relationship. I have a son who will be 21 this summer, but I've never had a child in a relationship. Yeah. I never had a child in a marriage.
So it's a whole nother ball game. It's all the difference in the world And if I would have missed it, I mean, it's a whole nother thing. You almost have to, I think, go through not being able to really see your children and raise them the right way to really appreciate it, you know. But I know that my whole fight since I've been, you know, my son's 30, I've had to fight every single one of my children's mothers just to see my children. And not having that, it's just different when you and the moms are on the same sheet of paper. You know, it's just different. It's a whole nother thing.
You got me taking.
Well, Dane, and Malik, it shows like back to what we talked about in the last show, right? With Talk for Grit, that idea of what it looks like when two individuals are complementing one another. And that's why I appreciate this story, the way the story was told, so much more, because it's there are so many layers to it, like the layers of that loss, how to deal with loss, how to heal, but how to heal together. And how they complemented one another. I think that is just an amazing story within itself that we're just lacking so much from all of our social media and what we have in front of us as entertainment. We're not seeing that for our people. So there are so many layers to what you two have done that makes this incredible, and it just makes me appreciate it that much more. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, you know, again, we always want to share everything with y'all. And, you know, this was just showing to me the world that there's always, you know, it gets the darkest before the light. And anything that's worth it, you got to fight for it, you know. And honestly, it wouldn't have mattered how much money I would have made or we would have made or getting an Oscar at a movie. If Rockie didn't have a baby, she would have felt incomplete. And it's definitely exhausting. But if this wouldn't have worked out, we would have been doing it again. And, you know, that's how hard you fight for love. And I'm not ashamed of it. You know, the good things get shown in my life. And I think it's fair that everything, if I'm going to show, you know, we normal people. We have feelings like everybody else. We're vulnerable like everybody else. And, you know, if we have a platform, you know, we take the good with the bad. If something happens to us, you can learn from it, you know. But we're never ashamed of nothing that comes our way because we've always done what we do in the name of love, you know. So I appreciate y'all always. And again, seeing that then and having a child now and exceeding and the timing of getting with y'all so that we knew how to raise, like had we had the baby back then, we wouldn't have had this education and this kind of thing happening. So everything somewhat happens for a reason. It's all about timing. And we just accept everything. We always thank all of y'all for supporting us our whole journey, you know? So thank you. And we appreciate it.
Before we go, Rockie, I just want to just give him out one critique. I have a critique. I just want to... It's bad, so bad.
All right, Jocko.
What y'all doing, Jocko?
Jocko, please go on mute.
Jocko.
I don't know. We went from domestics to dog fights or something else. Can you
to get a room. Get a room, Jocko.
Jocko, mute, please. I don't know why the power of mute.
No, I got my eyebrows.
She's like, oh, man.
Well, so first,
It was like TMO. Please, you don't want to hear that.
Oh, Lace is trying to talk.
Sorry, Lace.
First of all, Rockie, you know I love you. I've known you a lot of years. I always thought you and Dame were a great couple. And so I appreciate your story. I know this story is a similar story for a lot of different people. I just want to talk about the shot and the show. My critiques are positive. I love the textures in it. The textures are dope. And how you shot it, I feel your energy, I feel your emotion through your process as you were working this out. It seemed to me like you were just working this out through your emotions. So I just wanted to tell you that you did a great job, and it's an amazing testament to strength.
Thank you.
And I hope you continue on your journey. And God has His own way of doing things, and you're well blessed with little Dusko.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
And by the way, Nicolette shot everything. That was just her with the camera. So what's up, Nicolette?
Beautiful touches. Nicolette, you did a great job, little Nick.
Thank you.
Little Nick, you did a great job, sis.
Little Nick.
Little Nick.
Little Nick. You like that?
Oh, there's another name.
Like Little Nicky. Little Nick. I like that one.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I just want to say thank you guys for taking the time to watch this. It means a lot. And I learned a lot through this process. And I've learned so much from you guys. It was really my honor to show you guys. And because you really helped raise this boy with me. So he is an OSG educated little one.
Yeah, thank y'all. So we look forward to screening y'all stuff, you know. And again, we love y'all. And, you know, thank you. You can check it out, Dame Dash Studios. Or you can go watch it on DTV at Dame Dash Studios on IG. And I can't wait to watch y'all programming right next to ours with these real stories, you know?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
When's the next trip to Hawaii?
If I catch this link, we definitely went and saw some real estate out there. We went and saw my vision board. But, you know, you got to catch Hawaii when it's not the rainy season. That's the only problem with Hawaii. It rains a lot when it's raining.
It's the wettest place on the
It
planet.
gets real wet. So, you know, we want to go when it's nice and dry. Like, we would, now would be a good time.
May is the best.
May is the best time, but we're going to spend this year in Wyoming. You know, and we'll be showing you a special on us building Wyoming out too. I'm really impressed with what Rockie did with the place. So at the end of the day, it's all Rockie. It's all, everything's Rockie.
Be quiet when I'm being technical and my brain's in a technical place. Just say, shut up. That's not what we're talking about.
Oh, no.
I thought we did in a little bit kind of way. It was cool.
We were trying, Malik, but you was on the roll.
You were on the roll.
You know,
Let them roll.
I was in my technical space. I wasn't in.
Then Dennis came with the assist. He wants to keep it going, but it's okay. Goddamn. It's not the way
I appreciate everybody, and thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Love y'all.
Love y'all too.
Good night.
If you want another amazing video with the one and only Dame Dash, check it out right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.